All right, everybody, what's going on? It's Coach Clarence here, and this is Fit Over 40. And today, our wonderful guest in the studio. This is Bryce Henson. He is the CEO of Fit Body Bootcamp. It's one of the world's largest growing Fit Body Bootcamp franchises. They have nearly 20 years of fitness experience and owning his own Fit Body location. His passion is spreading fitness to the world through business coaching, through Fit Body Bootcamp, worldwide growth. Bryce has overseen hundreds of successful gyms launched throughout North America. Most importantly, he helps his franchise partners grow their profits while helping to offset the obesity epidemic, which I'm going to talk to him about. Bryce also enjoys world travel and is a fitness expert, coach, author, and inspirational leader. Bryce, what's happening? Tell everybody what's going on with you.
Clarence, what's up, my friend? Super excited to be here. Nice to reconnect.
Yes, sir. Kind of give everybody a little background and bring it to present.
Yeah, well, I guess I'm a fitness professional now. I oversee Fit Body, so I appreciate that awesome introduction. But it certainly didn't start that way. From a kid from the Midwest where I was allergic to working out, fast food, specifically Taco Bell was a staple of my diet when I was younger, and certainly have a lot of affinity and love for the Midwest. But one thing for sure, it's not the fitness capital of the world. So fitness was not my jam growing up, and for two reasons, more importantly. One, the culture. But two, my family, for first world standards, came from humble beginnings. We used to run out of money before we should run out of month. So, Taco Bell, especially, for my mom, who was a single mom, raising three kids, was a more affordable option. And I lived that way until I was about 21, 22, and got a job opportunity after I put myself through college in Los Angeles, California. So
nice. Is that where you are now?
Yeah, so we just our headquarters is actually in Chino Hills, California, but about an hour away, a suburb. But that's actually what first made me move out west.
Okay. Very good. Very good. Okay. And so I notice here you do a lot of coaching, and you are obviously being in charge of Fit Body Bootcamp. You deal with the owners a lot. What's that like, and how do you motivate them, especially during some of these economic times we had?
Yeah, well, shoot, I guess we'll kind of talk about COVID for a second and just the economic chaos that's entailed. But certainly wasn't fun, and very empathetic to all of our listeners and humanity for that matter. Very challenging situation, especially with the lockdowns and all the craziness that happened after that. And certainly, some states in terms of Fit Body Bootcamp locations were more affected than others just because of the government mandates and whatnot. But was able to crank through, and really through the power of our network, the power of our franchise partners, we're able to do two things. Number one, we're able to spin an online virtual program pretty much within 24 hours and taught our franchise partners across the brand how to execute that, so that way they could keep normalcy throughout their clients. And secondarily, we leveraged the power of the brand, and one of our franchise business coaches, his name's CJ, and his team of powerhouse fire breathing dragons out in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. And what they did is they live streamed every day, and ultimately were able to produce a lot of pre-recorded workouts, which we were able to distribute to the brand. So just the power of teamwork and collaboration, and the power of a franchise system. We're able to kind of navigate really rough storms. And, as you mentioned, coaching people, especially with emotions are high, it can be very challenging. But, that's the big value of leadership, which, I'm a student of, and, thankfully have picked up some good leadership skills throughout the way. Still have a long way to go, but really that's that essence of my coaching these days.
Mm-hmm. So primarily your job at this point is building the brand, building up the owners, and showing them how to market. Is that primarily what your day-to-day is?
Yeah, when I first, I guess, joined headquarters from a vice president role, because as we were talking offline, Clarence, both Fit Body owners, and I started my ownership journey back in 2012.
Okay.
So I started within the brand basically as a personal trainer, a coach, and was just really passionate going through my own transformation. But then in 2018, Bedros, our founder, offered me the vice president role, which then eventually transitioned into the CEO role. And my first line of fire within, being the vice president, one thing I noticed, and we had a really strong operations team and a finance team, and also good business coaches, but no business coaches specifically with Fit Body experience. They had entrepreneur experience, operational experience. So I turned to Bedros, or B as I call him, and I said, "Hey, B, it makes the most sense to me to who better to coach our owners within our brand than our most successful franchise partners." And that was really the idea that created the coaching and profitability team, or CAP team for short. So my first line of fire within, my headquarters role is I assembled a team of 6 franchise business coaches, or CAP coaches for short. And really that team has been leading the charge in terms of building our processes and systems, even throughout COVID as we evolved. So that was my main focus when I joined HQ. But then, and interestingly enough, my brother Barrett, who is one of our most successful franchise business partners, he has a location out in Michigan, top 10 in the nation. And he joined the team, and he assumed the director of coaching and profitability position. So that really freed me up. So his main focus, in addition to our coaching and profitability team, are still to coach our owners, support our owners, be there for ownership. But my role nowadays is really to kind of get eyes on the brand. So I'm the visionary of the brand. That's an EOS terminology, stands for Entrepreneur Operating System. If any of you have ever heard of it, Gino Wickman created the structure. Absolutely incredible. And the visionary's role is to get eyes on the brand, to generate marketing, generate stories. So in addition to that, I lead the team, but those are really, kind of my main focus these days in terms of brand expansion and growth.
Gotcha. So every other week on my show, I'm encouraging people to get coaching. I do some online coaching myself. Tell me why you think, what are some of the biggest reasons you need a coach?
Ooh. This is our name of the game, Clarence. Holy smokes. Without coaching for me, I'll take a step back and kind of talk a little bit about my transformation, because that really, when I first got in the fitness industry, that cemented the value of fitness and the value of coaching for me. And I alluded to a little bit when I first moved to California. I was excited. I was here in Los Angeles, the palm trees, the blue skies, all that LA had to offer. But LA is also the plastic capital of the world. So being very candid with you and your audience.
Yeah, I'm from Los Angeles, by the way, so I know.
Oh, there you go. What part?
Oh God, I grew up in South Central LA, lived all over Baldwin
All over.
Hills. Final
Okay.
place was Santa Monica. So, but
There
I've been
you
in
go.
Arizona for a while now.
Okay, cool. Well, yeah. So, I certainly was excited to be in LA, but, the first couple of years I had more dark days than good, just because I didn't have fitness in my life. And fortuitous situation, one of my close buddies from college moved out west, and we decided to live together. And embarrassingly enough, it took a few months to finally muster up enough courage to say, "Hey, Adam, can you show me a little bit this fitness thing?" And he turned to me, he's like, "Bryce, I thought you never asked, my dude, but here's the deal. If we're going to do this, we're going to do it right. I need you to commit for a solid 12 weeks. You're going to do what I need you to do. You're going to lift what I want you to lift. You're going to eat what I want you to eat. And after the 12 weeks, if you're like, hey, this isn't for me, well, then no worries. At least we went through the process." And I'm so glad he did that, because that's actually, Clarence, the value of a coach. It's not only to show you the way, but also to hold you accountable, because, you and your audience knows this. Every time you do something new, whether it's a new workout routine, whether it's a new work experience, you get excited at first, but then ultimately the reality sets in. The muscles are achy. I couldn't even sit, on the toilet. Certainly I had all that self-doubt in my mind, but ultimately stuck through. And over a period of 12 weeks, did I get the exact result I was looking for? No. However, in the famous words of Tony Robbins, progress equals motivation. So it just showed me enough where it's like, oh, this is actually working. And then I was able to be inspired to kind of stay that course, and really over a period of 6 months, drastically transform my physique, but also my life. And I think for me, that story just encapsulates the value of coaching, the value of instruction, the value of accountability. And it's interesting from a coaching perspective, a good coach knows when to show you exactly what to do. They know when to give you some empathy and give you a breather when you need it. But they also know when to give you a really smack on the butt to say, hey, get your butt in gear. And I think for me to kind of put a bow on the value of coaching, that's what it is. And a coach sits there with outside eyes, not emotional, and they give you feedback to get you better. And I think for me, that's the name of the game.
Mm-hmm. Tell me why you believe you get freedom by owning a franchise, Fit Body franchise.
Well, I think for me, freedom, you have your autonomy to live your life on life's terms, and, if you're stuck in a 9 to 5 without, too much flexibility in terms of your schedule, that can be really challenging. And that's actually the antithesis of freedom, right? So
Yeah.
freedom is about, having freedom of your mind, your body, your soul, your finances as well. So what I love about Fit Body Bootcamp is it provides that freedom vehicle for business ownership. And, let me be clear, especially for first-time entrepreneurs and first-time business owners, business is war. So it has a lot of upside to it, but also has a lot of trials and tribulations. So I also, want to be very clear on that. But big picture, if you can put in the work, especially if you join a franchise system, which we like to say you're in business for yourself, but not by yourself, you have a team of people supporting you. that gives you the opportunity to tap into the coaching, tap into support, and also tap into all the benefits of really, being a successful entrepreneur.
Who do you think is ideal client to own a fit body?
So we actually have a couple different dream franchise partners, if you will. And historically, the franchise partner that has been, really successful in onboarding is the former fitness, and not necessarily former fitness coach, forgive me, but the former business executive, as an example, who's kind of lived his life, his or her life for that matter, successful in business. And maybe they're a C-level executive, or maybe they just kind of climbed up the middle management ranks, and they've been successful from a financial perspective, but they've been in that rat race. They really just trading time for dollars. But most importantly, Clarence, they haven't had the big impact and fulfillment. And, from my perspective, we got one shot at this thing called life. We got one spin at this globe, and around this globe, I should say. And at the end of the day, you got to do something that fires you up and you're passionate about. So really our dream, avatar dream, franchise partner has had some success in terms of their career, but they wake up one day and say, hey, am I really fulfilled? Am I doing something I'm passionate about and I love? And typically speaking, they've had some sort of touch with fitness, whether they've joined a Fit Body Bootcamp gym or not, or they've just basically, done and had a very successful transformation themselves. And they realize, holy smokes, there's more than just living the rat race, if you will. And typically speaking, that's a really, really strong franchise partner because they have some business acumen, they have some experience, they have some funding to basically launch a business, but they have missed the passion in their life. And you combine it with a proven model like Fit Body Bootcamp, that's really where the magic happens.
So it sounds like there's a interview process. It's not just like any franchise where you pay the money and hey, you get a location and you go. So is there like levels of it? I don't remember when I did it. It was pretty simple. I filled out an application and paid my fee and I was off and running. But what's it like now? That was a long time ago.
It was, yeah. And we've certainly, matured and got more business savvy, from a franchise system, from a business system, from a coaching perspective as well. But yeah, we have, thousands of applicants that apply on a yearly basis, and our acceptance rates were actually really, really small. You put in an application, typically it's anywhere from a 3 to 6 month process. We need to make sure that you check out from a background perspective. Also make sure to have some business acumen. You don't necessarily have to have your own business previously. That's the value of joining a franchise, but we want to see that, you've been in the work world, you've been in the professional world, you have some professional skills, you have an interest and passion in fitness and also people. And what we like to say here at Fit Body Bootcamp, more than the fitness industry, more than the coaching industry, more than the nutrition industry, we're actually in the people industry. We're in the people business. And so you got to be passionate about people. You got to be passionate about fitness. You have to be coachable as well. At the end of the day, we have the standard operating procedures, the SOPs. We have the business, the framework, but really, just like a client coming into the doors of a Fit Body Bootcamp, they have to be coachable. They have to do the work to get the result. The same is true with our franchise business partners. And the last thing that we look for in terms of the application process, are they growth minded? Because at the end of the day, entrepreneurship, business ownership, it is a journey in personal development. It's a journey in personal growth. So you have to have the mindset of a growth mentality, because again, business is war. There's a lot that comes at you. You're responsible for a lot. So you have to develop yourself. And of course, through the support system of our CAP team, of our franchise business system, but we need to see these ingredients to make sure that you're really set up for success within our brand.
All right, let's switch gears really quick. Tell me what you think is one of the biggest challenges people getting fit right now.
Woo! Well, I would say a victim mindset, my friend. Honestly, that's just the first thing that comes to my mind. We live in a day and age where just people want to point the finger. It's him, it's her, and really, kind of miss out on personal accountability. And that's the tough truth, but that's the truth that a coach needs to give. It's about, accepting personal responsibility. And, I love this mindset. If it has to be, it's up to me. And certainly, from a leadership perspective, you need to be able to lead and grow yourself so you can lead a team of people. But really, from a fitness perspective, you have to take the bull by the horns and say, okay, enough is enough. Maybe I've had this challenge or that challenge or this bad stuff has happened to me. But at the end of the day, life is riddled with challenges, and you have to have a mindset of like, all right, let's go. Now's the time. So I think, high level, that's probably the biggest thing. And then of course, the lockdowns and all the craziness that we went through COVID did not do any help, but that's not the reason. The reason is personal accountability. And that's the reason we're having a conversation today.
Mm-hmm. what I've noticed a lot too is social media. There's so many experts and so many. One of the things people hear is something over here, a podcast over here. How do you make it all make sense? You know, do you find out where people are right when they start, or you come and here's our philosophy and this is what we believe?
I think that's the value of a coach, right? Like a value of a coach meets you where you're at. So there is one aspect to it that you have to have a structure, you have to have a curriculum, you have to have some sort of like fitness structure whenever you're engaging with another fitness professional to get a better result. But a good coach understands that it's not also a one size fits all. That you have to meet your client where they're at. And also too, just depends on what their goals, what their objectives are. If someone is trying to, shave off a second in their 40 to make the NFL combine, they're going to be on a little bit different fitness program than Mrs. Jones, who hasn't worked out in 20 years, that just wants to lose about 40 pounds of weight and, gain confidence. So it is about basically meeting, that client where you're at. Also, too, I think human nature in the world of marketing. I'm a marketer as well, but marketing, done distastefully can really create confusion in the marketplace, and especially promising pills and potions and gadgets. At the end of the day, if you actually break it down and kind of remove all the noise, what it comes down to is good fitness comes down to sleep, comes down to hydration. It comes down to eating lean proteins, healthy fats, fruits, vegetables, whole foods as much as possible, and it's about moving your body. And, certainly there's some hacks and optimization that you can execute. But when you really break it down, fitness is simple. It's not easy, but it's simple. And that's the value of having a coach and accountability partner.
Mm-hmm. Now, when I was in, it was really just going to a facility. Have you guys expanded to online coaching with Fit Body Bootcamp?
We have, and it definitely was I guess, a cause effect from the pandemic that really kind of opened us eyes. We had to pivot in the moment because depending on what state you're in, depending on how much time that your facility was locked down. Now, thankfully, that has gone and passed, which is great. But really, that kind of led the foundation for online coaching. That said, the value of Fit Body and really our business model, like to our core, we're in the people business, and people are tribal. People want to connect with other people. So not to say that you can't run a very, very successful online fitness program. In fact, I have many friends that do that very, very successfully. So there's value in that. So I guess it just depends on what your specific unique offering is. But again, Clarence, since you asked about Fit Body Bootcamp, the value in Fit Body is that in-person coaching, accountability. It's the community, it's the relationships. And we, as human nature, we need that. That's actually probably the biggest travesty of lockdowns. People are going crazy because we need to connect to each other. We need to build community. And that's really our secret sauce here at Fit Body Bootcamp.
Okay. So if I'm a business owner, fitness business owner, give me 3 leadership frameworks that would help me bring my profitability up.
Woo!
How do I scale?
Well, I'm actually going to give you a framework specific to leadership that I've derived, and I call it the 5 C's of leadership. And the 5 C's are clarity, courage, connection, community, and consistency. And I'll kind of go through, give you a high level. Clarity. A leader has vision. A leader has clarity. If you don't have vision, you ultimately will perish. I think there's a famous Bible adage, without vision, the people will perish. And that is so true, whether you're leading a massive organization, whether you're leading a boot camp where 250 or 300 clientele, or Clarence, whether you're just leading yourself. At the end of the day, you have to have a clear vision that will guide you as your North Star. So for me, that's the first C in the framework of leadership, which is clarity. The second is courage. You got to have courage. You got to have a pair to basically do the things that you need to do. And at the end of the day, leadership is about going against the grain. Many times as a leader, you actually have to stand up, not for what, or excuse me, stand up against what's popular for what is right. And sometimes those two are the same, but many times actually they're not. And as a leader, you have to have the courage to stand up and say, hey, no, this is not right. This is the direction we need to go, even in the face of scrutiny. Mm-hmm. So for me, courage is number 2. Number 3 is connection. We talked about this a little bit. First and foremost, we are in the people business, and you really can't lead people unless you have a good connection, unless you have good relationships. And what I've realized, and I learned this from Jocko Willink, who's a famous Navy SEAL, author of Extreme Ownership, which is an incredible book. Highly encourage it for you and your audience, if your audience hasn't listened to it. But he talks about building value through connection and relationships. And interesting, he talks about a story. It's like, we think in the military, usually hard self-charging A types that literally you just give them an order and they'll do, your troops will do whatever. That is not the case, especially when there's enemy fire on the line and you give an order to your team, your platoon, that maybe is not the most safest order. At the end of the day, when someone's life's on the line, they're going to second guess that. So the only way, not the only way, but a really, really important way that you need to be able to lead is through strategic relationships and building those connections, which is the framework I like to call it the third C in the framework. The fourth is communication, whether, Clarence, it's you and I just having a chat right now, whether it's addressing a large auditorium or a world conference, whether it's being on a podcast, whether it's, addressing a boardroom, maybe it's just a one-on-one conversation, maybe it's a written email or a social media post. In order to be a really effective leader, you need to be able to communicate your vision very clearly and concisely, because without that strong communication, then confusion happens. And ultimately with confusion, success does not follow. So that's the fourth C in my framework. And to finish us off is consistency. At the end of the day, just like in your fitness routine, just like in your business routine, it's many times the people and the leaders that maybe aren't the best, but they're the most consistent. And the worst thing you could possibly do is be like this all-star on one day and this train wreck on the other. You're not going to gain any respect from your audience. So there's a lot of value in a consistent long-term approach. So for me, clarity, courage, connection, community, and consistency, that's the framework that I've developed. It's really worked for me. And hopefully there's some value that for one of your audience members listening.
All right, cool. So you did some acronyms there. And one of the things I like to do when I have people on is to give them the FORD acronym, family, occupation, recreation, and dreams. So go through those four there so people can get to know you a little bit. Because even though you guys have a great setup, great system, I still believe people buy people. So tell everybody who the CEO is. Family first. Obviously, we know what your occupation is, and then recreation, dreams.
I love that, Clarence. Interestingly enough, we actually build that framework, that Ford analogy, in our new coaches onboarding playbook. So when we have new coaches come into our brand, we have a 12-week new coaches onboarding playbook program where they get access to our LMS system, which we call the Fit Body Bootcamp Academy. It gives them the exercise science, the nutrition coaching, but most importantly, it actually gives them the relationship building. And we use this analogy, man. So kindred spirits for sure. For me, family, I have a beautiful, loving wife. I ended up moving to the south of Brazil, a little island called Florianopolis back in 2010. Wow. Sight unseen, kind of straight out of Hollywood movie. We got introduced right before I left, about a week before, through a mutual friend. Her name's Tatiana. She picked me up from the airport, lived with her and her family for a couple of years, and then
you are a closer, man.
Yeah, well, I try, I have my moments. So, but she's my bedrock. I got an awesome family. My mom, Donna, she's from the Midwest. She actually lives with my brother 6 months of the year in Michigan, and then 6 months of the year out in Southern California. My sister, Emma, her and her husband have 2 kids in Temecula, California, which is about a half an hour away from our headquarters here in Chino Hills. And my brother, who's just a fire-breathing dragon, fire-breathing leader. Again, I mentioned him earlier. He lives out in Michigan, but he spends a lot of time in California being our executive director of coaching and profitability. So that's my family. That's my nucleus. My family is everything. And, I appreciate you asking. I can already sense that, is really important for you. Yeah. My occupation, I'm a CEO of Fit Body Bootcamp, but more than that, I'm a guy who just loves fitness and loves people and loves giving back.
What do you do for recreation then when you're not being CEO?
Yeah, I can tell you, my wife gives me a hard time. The last couple of years, my recreation has definitely been, a little bit lighter, but I love world travel. I moved to the south of Brazil because I always had this dream. I'll kind of go on a tangent here and give you a little bit more of my insight. Sure. I was always a giant Kobe Bryant fan ever since growing up in Michigan. Man, I love the Lakers. I love Kobe Bryant. And most people, I shouldn't say most, but many people don't know this. Kobe lived in Italy for 6 years in his youth. Right. He spoke fluent Italian. Right. So I thought it was the coolest thing ever. This icon of mine would just dominate on the court. And then all of a sudden, give an interview, depending if he stayed later, in Italian. I thought that was the coolest thing. So it really inspired me. And I didn't know what language I wanted to learn. Italian is really pretty, but actually Brazilian Portuguese, it's probably the closest, language to that. And when I hit the beaches of Rio de Janeiro back in 2008, it was love at first sight. So for me, I continue to study Brazilian Portuguese for recreation. I'm fluent now, but I met an awesome teacher about 10 years ago, and now it's more of a relationship thing. We have a weekly class. So, that would probably be my biggest source of recreation these days, language learning and traveling.
All right. And then your dreams.
Is
business first, then personal.
Well, I think from business, it's actually both. I
Okay.
love the vehicle of fitness. I love the vehicle of entrepreneurship and business. And our mission here at Fit Body Bootcamp is to inspire fitness and change lives. And our world and our country, for that matter, is in a massive health crisis. The obesity epidemic. 50% of the adult population in the states is statistically obese. Another 30% is overweight. And what's worse, Clarence, is 20% of our children these days is statistically obese, which shows you that our adults, and shame on us, are not being good role models for our kids. So for me, the vehicle of Fit Body Bootcamp, we're able to inspire fitness and change lives. And also, too, we're able to, help our franchise partners be, very profitable in their business endeavors. So it's a big passion project, both business and personal for me.
Okay, very good. All right, so for people in Arizona, who's a good part of my base, where are the locations for Fit Body Bootcamp if they want to join?
Oh man, that's a great question. Honestly, I feel blessed. We have hundreds of locations throughout North America, about 90% in the US and about 10% in Canada. In Phoenix, we actually have a good amount. So from Tempe to Chandler to Scottsdale to Gilbert to Arrowhead to, basically, many parts around the Phoenix area, which is a very big area. And we
Yes.
certainly still have some room for growth as well, but we've
Perfect.
been very strategically positioned there.
Okay, so is there a website they go to find their location? And also, if someone wants to be an entrepreneur and take on this task of Fit Body Bootcamp, where would they go?
Yeah, fitbodybootcamp.com is the best. It's more consumer site, but you'll see information on franchising as well. Fitbodybootcamp.com. And then would love to continue to stay in touch and serve your audience as well. You can reach out to me directly. All my social media handles, from Facebook to Instagram to Twitter, etc., is real Bryce Henson, not to be confused with fake Bryce Henson. So you can find me there.
Yeah, we'll make sure all your stuff is up. All right. Before we wrap up, anything you want to share? Word for the day. We're dealing with a lot of negativity these days. Share something positive that may have helped you in a low point in your life.
Yeah. I think just going back to my roots, and realizing I'm a huge believer in stoic philosophy, and stoic philosophy is about basically developing a strong warrior mindset. It's about not what happens to you, but really what how you can respond. And the best analogy in this is when you look at a fire, right? You take a base fire, a campfire. Now, if the obstacles in the world, the brush, the debris, the woods, the trees get thrown in the fire, those are signify the obstacles in someone's life. Does the fire cry and complain and say, poor me, all this brush, all this wood fire coming in? No, the fire says, you know what? I'm going to take this and I'm actually going to become stronger. I'm going to be bigger and bolder and brighter. And I think for me, that stoic philosophy, that mindset, it's not what happens to you, it's how you respond and how you make the situation better. It served me really well. So from that positive mindset, I really want to encourage you and your audience to adopt that. And it's really worked well for me throughout my life.
Awesome, awesome. All right, Bryce. Well, we appreciate you coming on, and it was nice to meet you finally through all this. And I've been following Bedros forever, and I'm loving his podcast. And he's something else. He's a trip.
He's a
What was it
beast.
like the first time you met him? Just quick
Woo.
story fast.
You know what, man? It was actually love at first sight. I kicked it off really well. This is back in 2012. And, we just talked about, starting a Fit Body Bootcamp business. And I lived in Brazil for those 2 years prior. And interestingly enough, when I was coming back to California about spring of 2012, is when I started really paying attention to this thing called Fit Body Bootcamp, because similar to you, I was following him for about 2 years prior. And I did all the research, I did the application, and being in Southern California, I was fortunate to live close to our headquarters and booked a meeting with him. And within 5 minutes, I mean, his intensities and passion, I knew, man, like I'm going to, link up with this guy and do some good things. And that's how we met.
Awesome. I love it. I love it. All right, Bryce. I appreciate you, and good luck with the franchise and keep it going.
Likewise, my brother. Appreciate your time.